So Cober Mouth came together in, we started the project in 2019, but we usually say 2023 is the first official date because that's when we release music. But we had an old band, myself and the current drummer, Dylan Plenty, that kind of fizzled out, as a lot of teenage bands do, and then we picked up with something else because we still wanted to work on music together. So Cober Mouth came as the next iteration of what we wanted to do. We'd been playing metal together since we were about, I think, 2014, so we would have been about 14, 15. As we went, we recruited new members. We've ended up with Sam as our guitarist now, and he's a principal songwriter as well. And it currently consists of myself, Dylan and Sam. We just work as a trio. We have people filling on bass and guitar occasionally, but we like how our unit works as it is, so we don't feel the need to have anyone else. We never envisioned ourselves being a nu-metalcore band. We just happened to work with Sam PR, who are the first company that we worked with for, it was the first EP, Untethered, and they suggested that we call ourselves nu-metalcore, so we just did. We were originally calling ourselves post-metalcore because there were a lot of tracks that didn't really fit into the metalcore realm, and some of the things we were doing were quite weird. There were a lot of like 80s clean style sections, or at least the guitar was very 80s, so but Sam PR eventually recommended we put that as nu-metalcore, so that's what we went with, and it's paid off ever since. It makes sense to us, and it's kind of given us more of a scope of what we should be writing, not so much as putting us in a box type thing, but more that you know where to base a lot of your inspirations for, rather than just trying to pluck from everything that's going on in your creative ether. I can't speak for everyone but in the band, but my influences stem from my dad playing me music either on the music channel or from his record collection, and the first song that I remember really hearing and liking was Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, and the first kind of rock heavy song that I heard was I Believe in a Thing Called Love by The Darkness, and from there kind of I listened to everything really. Basically if my dad was listening to it, I was listening to it, so it was anything from Kraftwerk, War of the Worlds, ABBA, Coldplay, all over the place. But that kind of grew as I got into more rock culture and could search for things myself. I discovered Guitar Hero 3, and it was game over from there. Before I Forget by Slipknot was the way into screamy metal. There is no real set approach to how we write songs and decide whether there should be a melodic section wherever. We're really one of those bands that just kind of writes from, if it sounds cool in my head, then I'm going to put it to paper, so to speak, or type it in a computer nowadays. It's not fucking Beethoven, mate. Kind of just write as we feel, and the aggressiveness of metalcore combined with the kind of more liberal genre inclusion that nu metal allows means that we can really do any kind of like wacky shit that comes into our head. For Guilty Weight, for example, it felt like it needed a big chorus with pitched scream vocals, so that's what we went with. There's a track that we're working on now that I felt there should be some like big layered vocals in the chorus, so we put that in there, but in the same breath, like, we don't feel because we're a nu-metalcore band that we have to only write songs that have that melodic and aggressive balance. If we need to, we'll just go no structure, no choruses, no hooks, just breakdowns and riffs, baby. Yeah, to summarize, it really is like a go with your gut thing. Whatever the idea sounds like in our head, that's what it's going out as. There's no, oh, this is only going to be an aggressive song. It's just, if the vibe fits, it happens. I'm a big believer in Isaac Hale's take on it from Knock Loose, that if it makes you laugh when you're writing heavy things, oh, you're on the money. To elaborate on our writing process a bit more, it really is usually just a case of someone will write the basis of a song, the foundations of it. More and more recently it's become, I'll write some demos, Sam will write some demos. We'll have the guitars and everything tracked, the drums are like what we think would be right, and then usually we just keep as is. We might make modifications based on suggestions, but the drums are usually just then given to Dylan to make better, because neither myself or Sam are hugely competent drummers, so yeah, we write the foundations of the song, and then hand over as a group, and we start working on it and developing ideas. Because we produce our records as well, there are a lot of variations that happen between the writing process and actually getting that mix out. I'll often think of synths and additional ideas. I'll usually throw way too many in and I'll get talked down for the final mix. We have tried to jam and write things a few times, but nowadays it really is, we'll have the full idea of a track and then we just kind of develop it further as a band. We usually do that behind a computer, but we do practice every week, so there are some live elements that work its way in. Something I wish we could do a bit more of is developing tracks by playing them live. We kind of had a long luxury of that through 2023, where we had an EP under us and we felt no obligation to keep the song secret, so we were just kind of road testing new songs, so I do kind of miss that. Once the tracks are together, I'll write lyrics to them. It's usually once the demos are down, but I'm really just a kind of spontaneous lyric writer. If I've got a riff and I think of some lyrics to it, I'll try and keep them paired, and then eventually through a few writing sessions in spontaneous locations, I get myself a full set of lyrics. Our songs are really just events that happen in life. It's me and analysing myself and talking about my feelings for others and things that happen to me, so everything is grounded in what happens to me in reality. I've always liked Simon Neil from Biffy Clyro as a lyric writer because he was able to kind of write in a way that it's cloaked by metaphors, so if you don't really know him and his situation, there's the best things and the biggest secrets that he's putting in there are kind of encrypted, and I always like that. So in my own writing style, I can tend to be very blunt, and I like the crude and often vulgar nature that metal has, and there's a lot of value in that for when you're pumping out breakdowns, but also I do like the intricacy that constructing metaphors and stories in a way that isn't completely obvious and somewhat cliche. There's a lot of kind of thought about poetic ways to present ideas, but it is all based on things that happen to me. I do find it easier to write things knowing that it's being cloaked by a metaphor, because I can say more or less exactly what I mean, but without people necessarily knowing. I feel like the scope for what's unusual in use of instruments and production techniques nowadays is growing thinner and thinner as metal becomes more and more crazy and kind of blends with electronic music as well. And producer techniques coming over from that. For our own records, we kind of, because we have the luxury of producing them ourselves, we get further control, so a lot of sounds on our records are samples that we've taken from instrumental vocals, chopped up, pitch shifted, and sequenced, like the start of Steroid is sequenced vocal snippets from myself. There's a lot of that subtly in the background, like in Beneath the Hydrogen, there's some like pitch shifted risers, as they're called, that kind of go that are like guitar waves chopped up, so it sounds a bit like a fucking drill or something going off, but it kind of makes up that wall of sound that people talk about in strong recordings. So it's less like obvious stuff and maybe not as wild as going out and like dropping a Stratocaster downstairs and recording the noise to splice into a breakdown, but there we go. It sounds cool. Unfortunately to say, there have been some kind of injuries at Cober Mouth shows, like unfortunately, pits kind of get out of hand, but yeah, it's just the kind of usual like cuts and grazes, unfortunately. Yeah, if you pit into our songs, be careful. I know it makes you fucking angry, but you know, spatial awareness goes a long way, especially when you're fucking throwing fists. So yeah, nothing too crazy, but blood is pretty crazy for me. I mean, I'm a meek and mild guy underneath. I did sign a satanic Bible once. That's kind of wild, I guess. Bit weird. Don't know if I've been cursed. Things have been going pretty well, so probably not. Not so much wild, but our drummer's kick pedal broke. The first hit, the beater just flew off into the air. So yeah, that was pretty fucking wild 2 minutes trying to sort that out. Recently I've been having a bit of caffeine before I go on, usually a Monster Energy OG Green, and I'll kind of, like, I'm an anxious guy anyway, but like I'll try and work that into my my pre-stage aggression, and I'll stick, once everything's set up, I'll stick my earbuds in and listen to stuff like Kublai Khan just to get the old blood flowing, and that usually gets me to the point where I can just get into the aggressive crazy man state without too much fuel, because I'm already kind of burning. For me, perfect mosh pit is, I want to see people getting involved, pushing each other, all that good stuff that makes the bass line. But since doing shows in Plymouth, I've had people doing fucking spin kicks, I've had them doing fucking cartwheels. Like, since I've been moving in hardcore circles, like, the standard gets higher of what would impress me, but any crowd that is responsive and just fucking lets loose, let's go. I'm happy with that. It's actually probably the most emotionally hard-hitting song in our catalogue for me is one that we don't actually play live. It's called Another Kind of Emptiness. It's like a minimalist piece that I wrote using guitar loops that I wrote when my granddad passed away from cancer. It was during the period when he was ill that I actually wrote it, and then kind of finished it around the time that he died. It has a sample of him talking at the start, and he says, "You can't do everything. You've got to figure out which is important and which will come along another time." And I've tried to live by that, because it's easy to lose sight of what's important, especially when you get swamped with everything as an adult. And I was I think I was in my early 20s at the time, so kind of advice that hits hard and that you need. But yeah, I can't really play that without, or hear it without getting a bit choked up. So yeah, that's definitely the hardest hitting one for me. Kind of is hard to just, especially when performing, to go hard for like 30 minutes, just letting out everything and then going back down to the kind of bass line. But for me, it's kind of not so much of a, oh, I have to get into this aggressive state to perform nu-metalcore. I just flick the switch and I'm into my other mindset, and I kind of just, it's more of like a release than like a task for me. It's hard work when you're doing it, but it's also not, because for me, I'm just letting out the other side. We'd worked with Sam PR for our EP Untethered, and we had really good results with that. We got all of the radio play that we wanted to, and press coverage, which was kind of impressed us for our first attempt at a PR company run, rather than just doing it ourselves. So naturally, because they delivered the goods with Metal Hammer, Radio 1, Kerrang, etc., we just thought, let's go with them again, and yeah, we got good results. Their involvement really pushes the awareness of what you're doing further and kind of legitimizes it. People want to see those big names playing your tracks and sharing it and writing reviews, and the independent organisations that also do a lot of their work for free and reviews and things like that, their voices matter as well, because they make up a big chorus of people praising your work, which is exactly the kind of thing that you need when you're trying to build up your profile. I definitely prepared work differently after I started working with Sam PR. I kind of had my own flow of doing things beforehand, but it was never as organised and with the intent that Sam PR put behind their campaigns and release timelines. So they definitely kind of brought me into a different domain when I'm thinking about what timescales I need. That changes with the industry, but Sam PR got it right for us. That's definitely a shock, getting the BBC Radio 1, Kerrang, Metal Hammer, Power Play, all those features being in actual magazines that I could pick up in a shop. All that was very surprising on our second release. So I was just shocked that we could deliver the goods to that standard, and obviously in the right hands of Sam PR, it went the distance. The double A sides that we released with Sam PR, called 3 Dark As It Gets, which comprised of Steroid and Guilty Weight, they're really like our kind of vision for Cober Mouth realised. We directed the videos and produced those. We mixed and released the music ourselves. Those tracks kind of brought home what we want to do with Cober Mouth. We want electronic influenced heavy music that straddles hardcore and metalcore and has the depth to be able to cycle between more melodic chorus laden sections with our previous catalogue of work such as Untethered. If I could sum them up in one word, evolution. The heavy music scene right now seems to be going through a revival, but I don't know if that's just because I've moved up country and become a 27-year-old man rather than a young teenager. But I feel like metal is really having a comeback, and people are just getting into heavy music. We see it with Bring Me the Horizon, Sleep Token, Spirit Box. Not just us that were emos in school anymore getting into it. Nu-metalcore specifically, I feel like people are branding themselves more nowadays because there's kind of a 90s, 2000s revival going on, and I think it's a good way to identify the people that are inspired by that era and now creating music that fuses with more modern metal. Definitely, in retrospect, one of my favourite acts to come out recently that are doing bits, and I'd also say keep an eye out on Apathy UK from Plymouth, who are doing absolute madness right now. I would tour with Throne right now, they're fucking killing it, and yeah, I would just love to be able to watch that shit side stage every night. If our band's sound was a flavour, it would be fucking raw pickle juice, because it would be like and on that note, goodbye. Like a